The transport ship came out of hyperspace with a loud hum that made Lisa Martinez grip her seat tighter. Through the small window, she could see the massive space station floating in the darkness. It was bigger than anything she had ever seen. Before, the Galactic Military Academy looked like a small city made of metal and glass. With bright lights shining from thousands of windows, Lisa took a deep breath and tried to calm her racing heart. She was only 19 years old, and she was about to become the first human ever to attend the most famous military school in the galaxy. Her hands shook a little as she picked up her bag and followed the other passengers to the exit, the docking. Bay was huge and filled with beings she had only seen in pictures before. Tall creatures with hard shells like insects walked past her. Their claws clicked on the metal floor as they moved. She saw others that looked like they were made of light, floating just above the ground. Some had scales like dragons and breathed. Small puffs of smoke from their noses, a voice behind her made her jump. "You must be the human." Lisa turned around to see a man in a dark blue uniform. He had kind eyes and a friendly smile. "I'm Captain Jake Morrison. I'm here to help you get settled in." "Thank you, sir," Lisa said, feeling a bit better. At least there was one other human here. "Don't look so worried," Jake said as they walked through the busy hallway. "I know this place can seem scary at first. I felt the same way when I first arrived 5 years ago." They passed groups of alien cadets who stopped talking when they saw Lisa. Some pointed at her and whispered to their friends. Lisa heard words she didn't understand, but the tone made it clear they were not saying nice things. "Why are they staring at me like that?" Lisa asked quietly. Jake's smile faded a little. "Most of them have never seen a human before. And many of them think humans are too weak to be here. You're going to have to prove them wrong." They entered a large room where hundreds of cadets were gathered. On a raised platform at the front stood the biggest creature Lisa had ever seen. It had 4 arms, gray skin covered in scars, and eyes that seemed to look right through her. When it spoke, its voice was deep and commanding. "I am Commandant Thexmore," the creature said. "You are here because you are the best warriors your worlds have to offer. But being the best on your home planet means nothing here. Most of you will fail. Most of you will go home in shame. Only the strongest will survive." Lisa felt her stomach drop. She looked around at the other cadets. They were all so much bigger and stronger than her. Some had natural weapons like claws and fangs. Others had thick armor-like skin that would stop bullets. What did she have? "The Academy has been training the galaxy's finest warriors for 300 years, Thexmore continued. "We have fought wars across 1,000 worlds. We have saved entire species from destruction. But we only want the best of the best." A cadet near Lisa made a sound that might have been a laugh. She turned to see a creature that looked like a giant bug standing on 2 legs. Its shell was dark green and covered in spikes. Multiple eyes looked down at her with what seemed like amusement. "Something funny, Cadet Zexstar?" Thexmore asked as the bug-like creature straightened up. "No, sir. I was just wondering how something so small and soft could hope to compete with real warriors." Several other cadets made similar sounds of amusement. Lisa felt her face get hot with embarrassment. She wanted to say something back, but the words stuck in her throat. "The human is here because Earth has joined the Galactic Federation," Thexmore said. "She will be given the same chances as everyone else. No more, no less." After the speech, Jake walked Lisa to her room. The hallways were full of cadets talking and laughing. When they saw Lisa, many of them stopped and stared. Some made comments in their own languages that clearly weren't friendly. "Your room is here," Jake said, stopping at a door with the number 247 on it. "You'll be sharing with 3 other cadets. Try to get along with them." Lisa's roommates were already there when she walked in. One was a tall, thin creature that seemed to be made of silver light. It barely looked at her when she entered. The second was a reptile-like being with red scales and sharp teeth. It hissed softly when it saw her. The third roommate was the most unusual. It looked almost human, but its skin was blue, and it had large black eyes that seemed to look right into her mind. "So you're the human," the blue-skinned creature said without moving its mouth. Lisa realized it was speaking directly into her. Mind, I am Velinara. I can read thoughts. Yours are very loud and very simple. I'm Lisa, she said, trying to sound confident. Nice to meet you. The reptile creature laughed, showing rows of sharp teeth. I am Rothkal. I have heard that humans are weak and stupid. You seem to prove this is true? Lisa put her bag on the only empty bed. It was smaller than the others and looked uncomfortable. I'm here to learn, just like everyone else. Learn what? The silver being asked. Its voice sounded like wind chimes. How to die quickly in battle? How to run away from real fighters? Lisa didn't answer. She started unpacking her things, trying to ignore the comments. Her roommates continued to make jokes about humans while she worked. Everything she owned seemed small and pathetic compared to their advanced equipment. That night, Lisa lay in her narrow bed listening to the strange sounds her roommates made while they slept. Rathkal snored like a dragon. Velinara made soft, humming noises. The silver being didn't seem to sleep at all. She thought about home and wondered if she had made a terrible mistake. Everyone here was so much stronger and more advanced than her. Maybe they were right. Maybe humans didn't belong here, but then she remembered why she had come. Earth needed to prove itself to the galaxy. Humans needed to show they could be more than just a primitive species on a small planet. Someone had to be first. Someone had to try. The next morning brought her first classes. Lisa walked into the training room to find it full of equipment she didn't recognize. The other cadets were already there, talking in small groups. When she entered, the room got quiet. Look what crawled in, Zextar said loudly. The soft little human. I wonder how long it will take her to quit and go home. I give her 1 week. Rathkal said, humans are not built for war. They are built for running away and hiding. Lisa found an empty spot and started stretching. She had trained hard on Earth, but she knew it wouldn't be enough. These aliens had natural advantages she could never match, but maybe that wasn't the point. Maybe she didn't need to be stronger or faster. Maybe she just needed to be smarter. The instructor entered, another 4-armed giant like the commandant. Today we test your basic abilities. Strength, speed, and endurance. Line up. Lisa got in line with the others. Around her, cadets flexed muscles and showed off natural weapons. She felt very small and very human, but she wasn't going to quit. Not today, not ever. The testing began, and Lisa quickly realized just how outmatched she was. In the strength test, she could barely lift half what the weakest alien could manage. In the speed trials, she was left behind by creatures that moved like lightning. The endurance test was a nightmare of trying to keep up with beings who didn't. Seemed to get tired, but through it all, Lisa noticed something. She watched how each species moved, how they used their abilities, what their weaknesses might be. While they focused on showing off their strength, she focused on learning. When the tests were over, Lisa was ranked last in almost everything. The other cadets laughed and pointed at her scores. Some made bets about how soon she would wash out. Maybe. Tomorrow we'll have a real challenge, Zextar said loud enough for everyone to hear. Instead of watching a human embarrass herself, Lisa said nothing. She just smiled and walked away. Let them laugh now. She had a lot of work to do. The second week at the academy was worse than the first. Lisa woke up every morning to find her things moved around her room. Sometimes her clothes would be on the floor. Other times her training equipment would be missing. Her roommates always acted like they knew nothing about it. Maybe you're just forgetful, Velinara said one morning. Her mental voice was cold and mocking. Humans have such small brains. It's easy to forget things. Lisa said nothing. She had learned that fighting back only made things worse. Instead, she started hiding her most important belongings under her mattress. The physical training got harder every day. Lisa pushed herself to her limits, but she still came in last in almost every test. The alien cadets were just too strong and too fast. When she ran, they flew past her like she was standing still. When she tried to lift weights, they made jokes about how weak she was. Maybe the human should try the children's training program, Zexstar said during one particularly difficult session. Oh, wait, even our children are stronger than her. The laughter from the other cadets hurt more than Lisa wanted to admit. She kept her face calm, but inside she felt like giving up. Every muscle in her body ached. Every day brought new humiliation, but the worst part was the combat theory class. Professor Quindle was a tall, thin alien with 6 arms and skin that changed colors when he talked. He was supposed to be one of the best military minds in the galaxy. Lisa had hoped this would be where she could finally prove herself. Combat is about more than just strength, the professor said on the first day. It's about thinking, planning, and understanding your enemy. The mind is the most powerful weapon. Lisa felt hopeful for the first time in days. This was something she could do. She had always been good at thinking through problems and finding solutions, but her hopes were crushed quickly. When Professor Quindle called on her to demonstrate a basic fighting stance, Lisa stood up and got into position. She had studied martial arts on Earth and knew many different fighting styles. The moment she took her stance, the entire class burst into laughter. Some cadets laughed so hard they fell out of their chairs. Others made mock fighting motions that were clearly meant to imitate her. What is that supposed to be? Zexstar asked between laughs. Is the human trying to dance? Or maybe she's trying to scare us with her tiny fists? Professor Quindle's skin turned a bright yellow color, which Lisa had learned meant he was amused. Very interesting, Cadet Martinez. This is how humans fight? One of the ways, sir, Lisa said, her face burning with embarrassment. It looks like something a child would do, Rathkal said from across the room. No claws, no fangs, no armor. Just soft skin and weak muscles. How do humans ever win fights? They don't, another cadet called out. That's why their planet was so easy to conquer by disease and weather before they even met other species. The laughter got louder. Lisa wanted to disappear. She had trained for years in martial arts, but here it looked like a joke. These aliens had natural weapons and armor. What did her training matter against creatures that could tear her apart with their bare hands? Perhaps the human would like to spar with someone, Professor Quindle said. To show us these martial arts in action? Rathkal stood up immediately. I'll fight her. But to make it fair, I'll only use my tail. I don't want to hurt her too badly. More laughter filled the room. Lisa looked around and saw nothing but mocking faces. Even the quieter cadets were smiling at her expense. No thank you, Lisa said quietly. I'd rather not. The room erupted in jeers and boos. The human is too scared to fight, Zexstar announced. She talks about martial arts but won't even try to use them. Coward, someone called out. Maybe she should go back to her little planet and hide, another voice added. Lisa sat down and tried to ignore the comments, but they kept coming. For the rest of the class, cadets made jokes about human cowardice and weakness. Professor Quindle did nothing to stop them. After class, Lisa walked quickly to her room. She needed to be alone. But Velinara was waiting for her. I can feel your embarrassment, the blue-skinned alien said. It's so strong it's making me sick. Your emotions are like a bad smell. Just leave me alone, Lisa said. I'm curious about something, Velinara continued. I've been reading the thoughts of everyone in our classes. Most species think in organized ways, but human thoughts are so scattered and weak. It's like trying to listen to a broken radio. Lisa tried to ignore her, but Velinara kept talking. The others are planning something special for you tomorrow. They want to make sure you understand that you don't belong here. I thought you should know, since your thoughts are too simple to figure it out yourself. That night, Lisa couldn't sleep. She lay in her bed thinking about everything that had happened. Maybe everyone was right. Maybe she was too weak and too stupid to be here. Maybe she should just quit and go home. But then she thought about Earth. She thought about all the humans who were watching and waiting to see if their species could make it in the galaxy. She thought about the children who might never get a chance to reach for the stars if she failed now. She got up and activated her personal communicator. It took a few minutes to connect across the vast distance to Earth, But finally, Colonel Pete Davis appeared on the screen. He was her mentor and the person who had recommended her for the academy. "Lisa," he said with a smile, "how are things?" "Going." Lisa almost lied and said everything was fine. But she was too tired to pretend. "It's terrible," she admitted. "Everyone here is so much stronger than me. They make fun of me every day. I'm failing every test. Maybe I should come home." Colonel Davis was quiet for a moment. When I was your age, I was in a war. We were fighting an enemy that was bigger, stronger, and better equipped than us. Everyone said we couldn't win. "What happened?" Lisa asked. "We won," he said simply. "Not because we were stronger, but because we refused to give up. Every time they knocked us down, we got back up. Every time they said we couldn't do something, we found a way to do it anyway." "But they have natural weapons and armor," Lisa said. "I'm just human." "Just human?" Colonel Davis laughed. "Lisa, do you know what humans are famous for throughout history? We're famous for being too stubborn to know when we're beaten. We're famous for finding ways to win when winning should be impossible." "I don't feel very stubborn right now," Lisa said. "I feel tired and weak." "Good," Colonel Davis said. "That means you're learning. Every great warrior has moments of doubt. The difference between winners and losers is what you do with those moments." After they talked, Lisa felt a little better. Not much, but enough to keep going. She spent the rest of the night studying videos of her alien classmates. She watched how they moved, how they fought, how they thought. If she couldn't be stronger than them, maybe she could be smarter. Maybe she could find their weaknesses. Maybe she could learn to think like they did and use that knowledge against them. The next morning brought a new challenge. Lisa walked into the training room to find all the equipment moved around. Her usual spot was taken by a group of Krillian cadets who pretended not to see her. "Oh, look who's here," Zexstar said loudly. "The little human who's too scared to fight." Maybe today she actually tried to do something instead of just embarrassing herself. Lisa found a new spot and started her warm-up exercises. She tried to block out the comments and focus on her training. But it was hard when every movement she made was met with laughter and jokes. During the endurance test, someone accidentally knocked her down. During the strength test, her equipment mysteriously stopped working properly. During the speed test, cadets got in her way and slowed her down. But through it all, Lisa kept watching and learning. She noticed that Zexstar always favored his left side when he moved. She saw that Rathkal got tired faster than he pretended. She observed that Velinara relied too much on her mental abilities and ignored her physical training. Captain Morrison found her after training, looking exhausted and defeated. "Rough day?" he asked. "They're all rough days," Lisa replied. "I've been watching your training sessions," he said. "You're learning things that the others aren't even aware of. You see patterns they miss. You notice weaknesses they ignore. Fat." "A lot of good it does me," Lisa said. "I'm still last in everything, for now," Captain Morrison said. "But the tests are going to change soon. Physical strength won't be the only thing that matters. When that happens, you might surprise everyone." Lisa wanted to believe him, but it was hard to have hope when every day brought new humiliation. Still, she wasn't ready to quit. Not yet. That night she made a decision. She would stop trying to be like the other cadets. She would stop trying to match their strength and speed. Instead, she would focus on what made her different. She would use her human brain to think in ways they couldn't. She didn't know if it would work, but she had to try. Earth was counting on her. And maybe, just maybe, being human was exactly what she needed to be. The third week brought a new kind of training that Lisa had never seen before. The Academy's Combat Simulation Center was a massive room filled with machines that could create any kind of battle scenario. The walls could become forests, deserts, or alien cities. The floor could turn into water, ice, or burning sand. "Today we begin tactical simulations," announced Instructor Kexmill, a large dragon-like creature with silver scales and scars covering his body. "These tests will measure more than just your physical abilities. They will test your mind, your leadership, and your ability to adapt under pressure." Lisa felt her heart beat faster. This was what she had been waiting for. This was where her human brain might actually matter more than alien strength. The first simulation was supposed to be easy. Each cadet would lead a squad of holographic soldiers to defend a small town from raiders. Most of the alien cadets approached it the same way. They put their strongest fighters in front, charged at the enemy, and used their natural weapons to smash through the opposition. Zex single quotes Tar went first. His simulation lasted only 10 minutes. He led his squad in a direct attack on the raiders, using his claws and armor to tear through their defenses. His soldiers followed behind, cleaning up the remaining enemies. It was brutal and effective. Acceptable, Instructor Kexmill said when it was over. Direct assault tactics, basic but functional. Rathkal went next. His approach was similar, but he used his fire breath to create chaos among the raiders before attacking. His simulation also lasted about 10 minutes. Velanara tried a different approach. She used her mental abilities to confuse the enemy leaders, making them turn on each other. Her simulation was faster than the others, finishing in 8 minutes. Then it was Lisa's turn. She stepped into the simulation chamber and felt the walls disappear around her. Suddenly, she was standing in a dusty town with wooden buildings and narrow streets. Her holographic squad appeared beside her, waiting for orders. Lisa looked around carefully. The town was surrounded by hills and rocks. There were many places where enemies could hide. The other cadets had focused on the center of town, but Lisa noticed something they had missed. There were caves in the hills where civilians might be hiding. "Sergeant," she said to her squad leader, "take 3 men and set up a defensive position at the north end of town. Make sure the enemy can see you." "Ma'am, shouldn't we all stick together?" the hologram asked. "Trust me," Lisa said. "Corporal Johnson, take 2 men and circle around to the east. Stay hidden. Private Chin, you're with me. We're going to check those caves," the simulation began. Raiders poured down from the hills, shouting and firing weapons. Lisa's squad at the north end of town started shooting back, making a lot of noise and drawing attention, but while the enemies focused on that fight, Lisa and Private Chun were quietly moving through the caves. They found a group of civilians hiding there, including children and elderly people who couldn't run. "There's a back way out of these caves," Lisa told them. "Follow us." While the main battle raged in the town center, Lisa led the civilians to safety. Then she positioned herself behind the raiders. When Corporal Johnson's team appeared from the east, the enemy was caught between 3 different groups, but Lisa wasn't done. She had noticed that the raiders were using the old water tower as a lookout post. Instead of attacking it directly, she used the town's own defenses against them. "Private Chun, can you reach that valve over there?" she asked, pointing to a pipe near the water tower. "Yes, ma'am." "Turn it all the way." Water came rushing out of the broken pipes, flooding the area around the water tower. The raiders on top were trapped. They couldn't climb down without getting caught in the flood, and they couldn't see through the spray of water. The simulation ended with all civilians safe, all raiders captured or defeated, and Lisa's squad having taken no casualties. The whole thing had taken 12 minutes, but it was 12 minutes of careful planning and creative thinking when Lisa stepped out of the simulation chamber. The room was completely quiet. The other cadets were staring at her with expressions she couldn't read. Even Instructor Kexmill looked surprised. "Interesting," he said finally. "Very interesting indeed." "What's so interesting about it?" Zextar asked. "She took longer than the rest of us." "Time is not everything," Instructor Kexmill replied. "She saved all the civilians. She captured enemies alive for questioning. She used the environment creatively. And she lost no soldiers." "So what?" Rathkal said. "It's just a simulation. Real combat is different." "We'll see," the instructor said. "Cadet Martinez, you'll face a more difficult scenario tomorrow." That evening, Lisa's roommates were unusually quiet. Velanara kept looking at her with those big black eyes, but she didn't say anything. Rothkal cleaned his scales with more force than usual. Even the silver beings seemed to be paying attention to her. The next day brought a harder simulation. Lisa found herself in command of a squad trying to rescue hostages from a space station. The station was heavily defended, and the hostages were being held in different locations. Most cadets would have tried to fight their way through the main entrance. Lisa studied the holographic space station carefully and noticed something different. The station's artificial gravity was powered by generators that could be accessed from the outside. "We're going to turn off the gravity," she told her squad. "Ma'am, that will affect us too," her sergeant pointed out. "I know," Lisa said, "but we're prepared for it. They're not." Lisa's squad practiced zero-gravity movements while the enemy was still expecting normal combat. When they turned off the gravity, the defenders were caught completely off guard. They floated helplessly while Lisa's team moved through the station like they had trained for it. Their whole lives, the rescue mission was completed in 15 minutes. With all hostages safe and most enemies captured alive, Instructor Kecksmill watched the replay with interest. "Cadet Martinez, where did you learn zero-gravity combat?" "I didn't, sir," Lisa said. "I just thought about how different it would be to fight without gravity, and I prepared for it." "You prepared for something you had never done before?" "Yes. Sir, humans are good at adapting to new situations." The instructor's eyes narrowed. "Are they indeed?" The third simulation was even harder. Lisa had to lead a desperate last stand against overwhelming odds. Her squad was surrounded, low on ammunition, and facing enemies that outnumbered them 5-1. The other cadets who had tried this simulation before had focused on fighting as long as possible before being defeated. The scenario was designed to test how well a cadet could delay the enemy, not how to actually win, but Lisa didn't accept that she had to lose. She studied the battlefield and noticed that the enemies were using a narrow canyon to approach. If she could block that canyon, she could change the whole battle. "Sergeant, do we have any explosives?" she asked. "Just a few grenades, ma'am. That might be enough." "Do you see those rocks up there? If we can make them fall, we can block the canyon." It was a risky plan. Lisa had to send most of her squad up the canyon walls while only a few soldiers held the defensive position. If the timing was wrong, they would all be captured or killed, but Lisa had watched how the enemy moved in the previous simulations. She knew they always attacked in the same pattern. She waited for the right moment, then gave the signal. The explosives brought down tons of rock, completely blocking the canyon. The enemy force was split in half, with most of them trapped on the wrong side of the rock slide. Lisa's squad didn't just survive. They won. They defeated an enemy 5 times their size by using the environment and careful timing. When the simulation ended, the room was silent again. But this time, Lisa could see respect in some of the faces looking at her. "Not friendship, but respect. Remarkable," Instructor Kecksmill said. "In 300 years of Academy history, only 12 cadets have ever found a way to win that scenario." "Maybe it was just luck," Zexstar said, but his voice didn't sound as confident as usual. "Was it luck, Cadet Martinez?" The instructor asked. "No, sir," Lisa said. "I watched how the enemy behaved in the simulation. I looked for patterns. I found their weakness and used it against them." "And how did you know to look for patterns?" Lisa thought about it. "Because humans have always been smaller and weaker than our enemies. We survive by being smarter, not stronger." That night, the Academy was buzzing with talk about the human cadet who had beaten the impossible simulation. Some cadets still made jokes about her, but others were starting to pay attention. Captain Morrison found Lisa in the library, studying tactical manuals. "I heard about today," he said. "The instructors are impressed. Some of them," Lisa said. "Others think it was just luck." "What do you think?" Lisa closed her book and looked at him. "I think I'm starting to understand something. All my life, I've been told that humans are weak. But maybe weak isn't the same as useless. Maybe being different is actually an advantage." "How so?" "Everyone here thinks the same way. They use strength and speed and natural weapons. But they don't think outside the box. They don't look for creative solutions. They just do what their species has always done." Captain Morrison smiled. "And humans?" "Humans adapt," Lisa said. "We look at every problem like it's a puzzle to be solved. We don't accept that something is impossible just because it's hard." You're starting to sound like a real officer. The fourth week brought the Academy's most feared test. Every cadet had heard stories about the Crucible, a week-long exercise on the Academy's training moon. It was a place where many promising careers had ended in failure and shame. Lisa stood, with the other cadets in the transport bay, looking out at the small moon through the windows. Its surface was covered in mountains, forests, and deserts. Somewhere down there, teams of cadets would face challenges that would test everything they had learned. Listen carefully, Commandant Dexmore said to the assembled cadets. You will be divided into teams of 3. Each team must complete a series of objectives while surviving on this moon for 7 days. You will face environmental dangers, combat scenarios, and leadership challenges. Lisa felt her stomach tighten as the team assignments were announced. She watched as the strongest cadets were grouped together. Zexstar was placed with 2 other powerful Krillians. Velinara joined a team of telepathic aliens. Rathkal was paired with fellow reptilian warriors. Then Lisa heard her name called. Martinez, Dexron, and Murdoch, the Commandant announced. Lisa looked around and saw her teammates. Dexron was a thin, nervous Altarian who had struggled in every physical test. His pale blue skin was always covered in sweat, and his hands shook when he was scared. Murdoch was a young Vorthan, who had been injured during the 3rd week and was still limping. Other cadets began to whisper and point. Lisa could hear some of them laughing. The failure team, someone said loud enough for everyone to hear. They put all the weakest cadets together, Zexstar announced. I guess the instructors want to get rid of them all at once. Lisa walked over to her teammates. Dexron was staring at the floor, his thin shoulders shaking. Murdoch was trying to hide his limp, but Lisa could see he was in pain. I'm Lisa, she said to them. I guess we're working together. We're going to fail, Dexron whispered. Everyone knows it. They put us together because we're the worst cadets in the Academy. That's not true, Lisa said, though she wasn't sure she believed it herself. Yes, it is, Murdoch said bitterly. Look at us. You're the human that everyone laughs at. I'm injured and can barely walk, and Dexron is afraid of his own shadow. Lisa looked at her teammates and felt a familiar feeling in her chest. It was the same feeling she had when everyone said humans were too weak for space. The same feeling she had when her roommates mocked her every day. It was the feeling of being counted out before the fight even started. You know what? Lisa said. Maybe they're right. Maybe we are the 3 worst cadets here, but that doesn't mean we have to stay that way. The transport ships carried all the teams down to the moon's surface. Lisa's team was dropped in a rocky area far from any of the other teams. Their first objective was marked on a map 20 kilometers away. We'll never make it, Dexron said, looking at the rough terrain. 20 kilometers over those mountains with my leg? Murdoch added. Lisa studied the map carefully. The other teams would probably take the direct route over the mountains. It was the fastest way, but also the hardest. There was another path that went around the mountains through a valley. It was longer, but it looked easier. We're not going over the mountains, Lisa said. But that's the fastest way, Murdoch protested. For teams that can climb fast and aren't injured, Lisa replied. We're taking the valley route. That will take much longer, Dexron said. Maybe, but we'll actually make it there instead of collapsing halfway up a mountain. As they started walking, Lisa noticed something. Dexron might be nervous and scared, but he was very smart. He knew a lot about the plants and animals on the training moon. When they needed to find water, he pointed out which rocks would have springs underneath them. Murdoch might be injured, but he had excellent eyes. Even with his limp, he could spot dangers from far away. He saw the hidden cameras that were watching them. He noticed the tracks of predatory animals they should avoid. You know, Lisa said as they walked through the valley, we might not be as weak as everyone thinks. Their first real test came on the 2nd day. They reached their objective point, to find a combat simulation already in progress. Other teams were supposed to capture a fortified position defended by holographic enemies. Most teams had tried direct assault tactics and failed. Lisa watched the simulation for a while, studying how the holograms behaved. The enemies were programmed to expect standard military attacks. They had strong defenses against frontal assaults and flanking maneuvers. "What are you thinking?" Murtek asked. "I'm thinking those defenses are designed to stop normal attacks," Lisa said. "But what if we don't attack normally?" "What do you mean?" Dexron asked. Lisa pointed to a service tunnel that ran under the fortified position. "Dexron, you know about the environmental systems here. Could someone crawl through that tunnel?" Dexron studied the area. "Yes, but it would be very uncomfortable and dirty. And scary." "Perfect," Lisa said. "Because the holograms won't expect it." "Murdoch, can you create a distraction from up on that hill?" "My leg ... You don't need to run," Lisa said. "Just make noise and movement. Make them think we're attacking from that direction." The plan worked perfectly. While Murdoch created a distraction and Dexron crawled through the tunnel to disable the defenses from inside, Lisa waited for the right moment to attack. When the holographic enemies were all focused on the wrong direction, she struck from behind. They completed the objective faster than any other team. "How did you do that?" asked the monitoring instructor when they reported their success. "We used our weaknesses as strengths," Lisa said. "Dexron is small enough to fit in places others can't go. Murdoch can't run, so he makes a perfect sniper. And I think differently than everyone else." The instructor made notes on his tablet. Interesting approach. Word spread quickly through the communication network. The failure team had somehow succeeded where stronger teams had failed. Lisa could hear other teams talking about it on their radio channels. "It must have been luck," Zextar's voice crackled over the radio. "Or maybe the simulation was broken," another cadet suggested, but as the week continued, Lisa's team kept succeeding. When they faced a rescue mission, Lisa used Dexron's knowledge of the local wildlife to create safe paths through dangerous areas. When they encountered a puzzle that required physical strength, Lisa found ways to use leverage and simple machines instead of brute force. Most importantly, Lisa helped her teammates believe in themselves. She gave Dexron small tasks that built his confidence. She found ways for Murdoch to contribute that didn't require him to run or climb. And slowly, both of them started to believe they could succeed. "You know," Dexron said on the fourth day, "I've never been part of a winning team before." "Neither have I," Murdoch admitted. "It feels strange." "It feels good," Lisa said. Their biggest test came on the sixth day. They faced a scenario that had stumped Academy cadets for years. A group of prisoners was being held in a heavily fortified base. The rescue team was outnumbered 5-1. Every previous team had failed this mission. Lisa studied the situation for hours. The base was built on top of a hill with high walls and guard towers. There were only two ways in, and both were heavily defended. The enemies had better weapons and more soldiers. "This is impossible," Murdoch said. "No wonder every team fails." "Maybe that's the point," Lisa said. "Maybe we're not supposed to think like every other team." She looked at the base again, but this time she thought about it differently. Instead of seeing a fortress to attack, she saw a trap to avoid. "What if we don't rescue the prisoners by fighting our way in?" she asked. "What do you mean?" Dexron asked. "What if we make the enemies bring the prisoners to us?" Lisa's plan was complex and risky. It required perfect timing and a lot of things to go right. But it was also completely different from anything anyone had tried before. First, Dexron used his knowledge of the local environment to start a small wildfire upwind from the base. The smoke would force the enemies to evacuate their prisoners to a safer location. Then, Murdoch positioned himself where he could watch the evacuation routes and report on enemy movements. Finally, Lisa set up an ambush at the evacuation point. Instead of attacking a fortress, she would intercept the prisoners during transport when the enemies were disorganized and confused. The plan worked flawlessly. The holographic enemies evacuated their prisoners exactly as Lisa had predicted. Her team rescued all the hostages without firing a single shot at the main base. When the simulation ended, the Academy's communication network went silent. No team had ever solved this scenario before, The instructors were so surprised they had to verify the results 3 times. "Remarkable," came Commandant Thexmora's voice over the radio. "In the Academy's 300-year history, this is the first time anyone has found a solution to the prison break scenario." That night, as the teams prepared for their final day on the training moon, Lisa sat with her teammates around a small fire. Both Dexron and Murdoch looked different than they had a week ago. They sat straighter, spoke with more confidence, and looked people in the eye. "I have a confession," Dexron said. "When they put me on this team, I thought my career was over. I thought they were just giving up on me." "Me too," Murdoch admitted. "I figured they wanted to get rid of the injured cadet by pairing him with the other failures." The final week at the Academy brought the ultimate test that every cadet feared and anticipated. Individual combat assessments would determine final rankings and decide who would graduate as officers in the Galactic Defense Force, the entire Academy gathered in the massive arena to watch the fights. Lisa stood in the preparation room, trying to calm her racing heart. Through the walls, she could hear the crowd of cadets cheering and shouting. Her success during the Crucible had earned her a place in the final bracket, something no one had expected when she first arrived. "Nervous?" Captain Morrison asked as he entered the room. "Terrified," Lisa admitted. "Physical combat is still my weakest area. All my tactical victories won't matter if I can't fight." "Remember what you've learned," Morrison said. "You don't have to be the strongest. You just have to be the smartest." The first round of fights had already begun. Lisa watched on a monitor as powerful alien cadets battled each other with natural weapons and advanced techniques. Claws sparked. Against armor, telepathic attacks met mental shields, and fire breath illuminated the arena. "Next fight," the announcer called. "Cadet Lisa Martinez versus Cadet Torvik." Lisa walked into the arena and felt the weight of hundreds of eyes watching her. The crowd was mostly silent, but she could hear whispers and murmurs. Many were probably betting on how quickly she would lose. Her opponent was a mid-ranked Saurian cadet with red scales and sharp claws. Torvik was not the strongest fighter in the Academy, but he was fast and aggressive. He had won his previous fights by overwhelming his opponents with quick, brutal attacks. "Begin," the referee announced. Torvik immediately charged forward, his claws extended and ready to strike. It was exactly what Lisa had expected. She had watched him fight before and knew his pattern. He always started with the same aggressive rush, but instead of trying to block or dodge, Lisa did something unexpected. She stepped forward to meet his charge, but at the last second she dropped low and swept his legs. Torvik's moment carried him forward, but now he was falling instead of attacking. Lisa rolled to the side as Torvik crashed to the ground. Before he could recover, she was behind him, applying a chokehold she had learned from human martial arts. How did she ... Someone in the crowd started to say. Torvik struggled, but Lisa had positioned herself perfectly. She knew exactly where his armor was weakest and how his reptilian body moved. Within seconds, he was unconscious. The arena fell completely silent. Then, slowly, a few cadets began to clap. The applause grew until the entire arena was cheering. "Winner, Cadet Martinez," the referee announced. Lisa helped Torvik to his feet when he woke up. He looked confused and embarrassed. "How did you know to do that?" he asked. "I watched your previous fights," Lisa said. "You always start the same way. I was ready for it." Her next opponent was Velinara, the telepathic Vorthan who had been her roommate and tormentor for weeks. As they faced each other in the arena, Lisa could feel Velinara trying to enter her mind. "Your thoughts are so simple," Velinara said without moving her lips. "I can see everything you plan to do." But as the fight began, Velinara discovered something shocking. Her telepathic abilities, which had dominated every previous opponent, were not working properly against Lisa, human minds. It turned out were naturally resistant to telepathic intrusion in ways that other species were not. "What's wrong?" Lisa asked aloud. "Having trouble reading my thoughts?" Velinara's confusion was obvious. Without her mental advantages, she was just another fighter with basic physical skills. Lisa had spent weeks studying how Velinara moved and fought. without telepathy to guide her. Velinara made mistakes that Lisa was ready to exploit. The fight ended with Velinara on the ground, defeated by an opponent whose mind she could not control or predict. "Impossible," Velinara whispered as Lisa helped her up. "No one can resist telepathic contact." "Humans can," Lisa said simply. "We're naturally shielded." "We had to be, or we would have gone crazy from all the voices in our heads." The crowd was buzzing with excitement now. The human cadet was advancing through the bracket, defeating opponents who had seemed far superior to her. But the real test was still to come. In the final match, Lisa would face Zextar, the Krillian warrior who had led the mockery against her from the very first day. He was the Academy's top combat cadet, undefeated in individual combat and widely expected to graduate first in their class. "So," Zextar said as they prepared for their fight, "the soft little human made it this far. I'm impressed. But this is where your luck runs out." "It was never luck," Lisa said calmly. The final fight began with Zextar displaying all his natural advantages. His chitinous armor could stop most attacks. His razor-sharp claws could cut through metal. His speed and strength were greater than any human could match, but Lisa had been preparing for this fight for weeks. She had watched every one of Zextar's previous battles. She knew his patterns, his preferences, and most importantly, his weaknesses. Zextar always fought the same way because it had always worked for him. He relied on his natural superiority to overwhelm opponents. He had never needed to adapt or change his tactics. Lisa, on the other hand, had spent her entire time at the academy learning to adapt. Every day had been a lesson in overcoming superior opponents through intelligence and creativity. The fight was longer and more brutal than any Lisa had faced before. Zextar's claws left marks on the arena floor where they narrowly missed her. His armor deflected several of her attacks. But slowly, Lisa began to gain the advantage. She used his aggression against him, making him overextend his attacks. She exploited the gaps in his armor that he didn't even know existed. Most importantly, she fought in ways he had never seen before, using techniques that confused and frustrated him. "Fight properly," Zextar snarled after Lisa used another unexpected maneuver to avoid his attack. "I am fighting properly," Lisa replied. "Just not the way you expect." The end came suddenly. Zextar, frustrated by his inability to land a decisive blow, made a desperate charge with all his strength behind it. Lisa had been waiting for this moment. She stepped aside at the last possible second and used his own momentum to send him crashing into the arena wall. Before Zextar could recover, Lisa was on him, applying a submission hold that trapped his arms and made his claws useless. No matter how strong he was, he couldn't break free from a position where strength didn't matter. "Yield," Lisa said quietly. For a moment, Zextar continued to struggle. Then slowly he stopped fighting. "I yield," he said, his voice barely audible. The arena exploded in cheers. Cadets who had mocked Lisa for weeks were now on their feet, applauding her victory. Even the instructors looked impressed, but the biggest shock was yet to come. When the final scores were announced, Lisa Martinez had not just graduated from the academy. She had achieved the highest combat scores in the institution's 300-year history. Commandant Dexmore stood before the assembled cadets to address what had happened. "When Cadet Martinez first arrived," he said, "many of you saw weakness. You saw a small, soft creature from a primitive world. You were wrong." The commandant's 4 eyes swept across the crowd. "What you failed to understand is that strength comes in many forms. The greatest warriors are not always the biggest or the fastest. They are the ones who can adapt, who can think, and who refuse to give up no matter what the odds." He turned to look at Lisa, who stood at attention with the other graduating cadets. "Cadet Martinez has demonstrated something that many of you still need to learn. Intelligence and determination can overcome any natural advantage. The ability to adapt and grow is more valuable than any weapon or armor." Lisa felt tears in her eyes as she received her commission as a lieutenant in the Galactic Defense Force. Around her, cadets who had once laughed at her now looked at her with respect and admiration. Zextar approached her after the ceremony. I owe you an apology, he said. I thought humans were weak because you're not like us. I didn't realize that being different could make you stronger. We're all different, Lisa said. That's what makes us strong when we work together. Even Velinara came to speak with her. I couldn't read your mind during our fight, she said, but I can sense your emotions now. You're not angry at us for how we treated you. No, Lisa said. You taught me something important. You taught me that I don't have to be like everyone else to be valuable. I just have to be the best version of myself. A week later, Lisa stood on the bridge of the starship Andromeda, her first assignment as an officer. Reports were coming in of a new threat to the galaxy, something that would require all the skills and cooperation of different species working together. Her fellow officers, including several of her former academy classmates, looked to her for guidance. The human who had once been mocked was now someone they trusted to lead them into danger. What are your orders, Lieutenant? Asked the ship's captain. Lisa looked out at the stars and thought about everything she had learned. She had arrived at the academy as a scared young woman who thought she had to prove that humans were as strong as aliens. Now she understood that humans didn't need to be like other species to be valuable. They just needed to be human. Set course for the crisis zone, she said. And remember, we're not just representing our own species anymore. We're representing the idea that anyone,